Hey there, this is Erica from Ever Educating, and this channel is teaching tips, tools, ideas, and resources for new college instructors. In each of my video descriptions, I include a link where you can suggest video topics. And recently, I got a request for a video about how to be an effective communicator when you're doing your lessons. And so I thought this was a great topic to discuss. And so here are a few tips in the process you can use in order to have really effective lessons. So to begin, I think it's really important that you have some kind of acknowledgement of what's to come in a lesson as early as possible. So for example, if you're teaching either in person or online, in your class website, you might potentially have, okay, here's week 1. On Tuesday, we're covering this, and on Thursday, we're covering this. So that even before students arrive in your classroom for that day, they can read the class website and know, okay, we're focusing on A, B, and C topic. Let me make sure I'm prepped to cover that in case I have to take part in a discussion or do an individual activity, a pop quiz, right? So even before the class period begins, potentially having information on, hey, here's what's happening next time. So this can be something you do, again, on the class website, or maybe you just do it in class. So you might end each class period saying, next class period, we're covering X, Y, and Z. Right? Make sure you're prepared for that. So again, that going in, they already have at least a hint of what's to come in that class. And hopefully that means that they're going to be prepared enough to take part in that lesson. So that's the first tip that I have. Now next, I think that it can be really important to have an interactive element to your lesson. So I'm not saying in the sense of having like small group projects or individual activities. Yes, definitely have those. But if you're lecturing, I do think there should be an interactive element happening as well. So you can do this just like without any tech. So you might have, okay, what questions do you have after you cover a few minutes of a topic? Or you might have, okay, we covered these 10 terms. Someone give me an example of this one. And so you pause and you make sure that they're actually understanding the concepts that you're explaining. It could be just that. Or you might have some kind of Pear Deck activity going on where they're signed into the Pear Deck during the whole lesson, and periodically you have, okay, here's a question I have for you, type out your answer. Or here's a multiple choice question, which one is the answer? And this could be like, again, like give me an example of this concept, or it might be, okay, we've covered like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of content. What are you feeling most confident about? What are you most confused about? And so they can answer in that kind of way instead. And so you can pause there, and if you have a student who says, I'm really confused by this, you can go ahead and reiterate, you can explain, you can make sure that they're understanding before you move forward. And using Pear Deck, it could be completely anonymous. So you might have students being more comfortable saying, I don't know what you mean by this, right? Or could you repeat this again? Or what about this scenario? How would this apply here? So that could be a way of doing it too, if you're more comfortable with tech, or if you're using a situation where tech is just better than having, face-to-face asking the question. Maybe you're teaching asynchronously, so you can have asynchronous Pear Decks. You might have, hey, you're watching this 30-minute lecture video. I want you to also complete this Pear Deck where I ask you periodically, what are you confused about? What are you clear about? What do you want to know more about? And so in that case, you can see those results and plan accordingly for the future class periods. So I do think an interactive element is very helpful. So it can just be, verbally, or again, Pear Deck is the one I suggest. I'll go ahead and link a few videos about it below. If you are doing videos, you might do something like Edpuzzle, which allows you to add in questions throughout the activity or the video instead. That could be a possibility too. I'll link a video about that one as well. So that's something I also advise. My second tip is to make your lecture as interactive as possible. Now, I also recommend doing exit cards in order to help with effective communication. Because at the end of a course or the end of a class period, you can ask, okay, going forward, what do you want to know more about? A, B, or C? So you can get a sense of what interests them the most, or you might ask them, if there's one thing that you wouldn't mind going over again just to get a stronger sense of it, what would that be? And have them answer that, so you know what likely is confusing them still the most. So not just throughout the lesson, but at the end, have some kind of question that gives you a sense of what's still confusing, right? Or it might be, what are they most excited about. So maybe everybody's understanding everything perfectly fine, but you want to know what are you most invested in, so we focus more on that so you stay invested in the course going forward. So exit cards or an exit activity is something I recommend as well. And again, I'll have a link about that type of activity in the description too. So before class begins, give them some idea what's happening. You might even start the class period saying, here's our agenda for the day. It's A, B, C, and D, right? So they have a sense of that as well. And then at the actual lesson, making sure you're asking interactive elements, interactive questions, right? To make sure we're all on the same page, that we're all invested. And at the end of the lesson, have an exit card or an exit question that you're asking them. I also recommend around mid-semester that you do what's called a midterm chat. And I have videos and a blog post about that as well. But basically, you're seeing what's working well for them so far, what's not working well for them so far. You know, have them brainstorm ideas of how they can improve their own experience in the course, and then have them offer suggestions on how you could potentially improve their experience in the course. Now, you might not be able to do all of what they ask for, right? It might not be possible. It might not be pedagogically savvy, but you can at least get a sense of what they might be thinking about the course, so you can potentially make some changes to the better in the second half of the semester. So that's another tip as well. As you get towards, you might do like 1/3 of the way through, 2/3, and then you have the student eval at the end. You might create your own course assessment asking, hey, what worked really well? What didn't work well? What would you change if I taught this again? What wouldn't you change? So then you can have a more effective course design going forward in the next semester. So these are some ideas, I think, for effective communication when you're doing lessons, if you're doing a lot of lecturing. But other than that, I think, offering office hours. If you're unsure about something, come see me one-on-one. Email me for setting up an appointment. Like making clear to them that you're really invested in their learning and you want to hear from them could be really key for some who are worried that they're bothering you or you're not really invested in them, right? You're just doing it because it's your job. So I do think offering office hours often could be really good for this as well. And you might even mention, like, when you're doing your lesson, if this is confusing you and you want to know more, I'm actually going to host a themed office hour this week where I'll talk more about it and I can answer any of your questions. So feel free to come in, chime in, come in and out. I'll be doing it for half an hour on this day. So that can be a way of doing it as well. Potentially, they'll thrive more on a smaller class setting or even one-on-one if they're the only one who shows up for that themed office hour. So these are some ideas. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, click like to let me know. And if you ever have, again, your own suggestion of a theme for a video, the link is below where you can go ahead and post those suggestions. If you're not a subscriber yet, I welcome you to join us, and I'll see you next time with a new video.